The Val d'Aosta is a mainly mountainous region with over 40 peaks of more than 4,000 meters above sea level. More than half of the surface area can be found at more than 2,000 meters above sea level, which, as well as the limited vegetation, is characterized by extended rocky areas, incredibly steep slopes, and at least 9 months of ice each year. At these altitudes, the landscape is made up of around 200 glaciers and 700 alpine lakes. Fontina DOP has been produced in this area for centuries. One of the affrescoes in the Isonia castle, dating back to the 15th century, portrays a stall of food products, including some wheels of cheese which are identical to those produced today. The name Fontina appears for the first time in a document in Latin dated to 1270 and refers to an area of land. Since the 1700s, the term has been used to indicate cheese in various manuscripts, texts, public deeds, and inventories. The word Fontina may derive from a place or a family name. The Val d'Aosta is bordered to the west by the Grai Alps and to the north by the Pennine Alps. From Mont Blanc to Piedmont, the land is divided by the Dora Baltea, in which around a dozen other main rivers flow from 2 large banks, in turn crossing as many lateral valleys. Below 2,700 meters, the environment is characterized by woodland pastures and cultivated fields that leave the landscape verdant all the way through to late summer, suitable for a climate that has little rainfall during the warmer months. Up to 97% of all the land worked by farmers is destined to produce fodder. The breeding of dairy cattle is therefore by far the most common rural agricultural activity in the region. Cattle pasture at least 6 months a year. They start in the valley bed in spring to reach the highest peaks of the alpine pastures, known as tramutos, in midsummer. The same journey is then undertaken in reverse from the end of spring to the first frosts of late autumn. The following animals belong to the Val d'Ostana race: Pizzata Nera, Castana and Pizzata Rossa, which is by far the most common. They are proud, lively, rustic animals whose characteristics lend them agility in moving even on the steepest pastures. This allows them to deal well with long journeys by foot and make the best use of food found at high altitudes, drinking directly from the waters that flow abundantly in the valleys. Tradition has it that every year, between the end of May and the beginning of June, the cattle move upwards to the alpine pastures to take advantage of the land stretching from above the cultivated fields all the way to the upper limits of the herbaceous vegetation. This is found between 1,800 and 2,700 meters above sea level. This covers around 40,000 hectares where many different fodder species grow spontaneously. Each alpine pasture is made up of 2 or more stations known as tramuto, found at different altitudes so that on each journey, upwards at the beginning of the season and in reverse towards the end, the animals can use the fodder when it is at its best. Each tramuto is equipped with stables, rooms for milk production and storage of cheeses, and is also used as a dwelling. In mountain pastures, the cattle herd takes the animal to pasture twice a day, after the morning milking and again after the afternoon milking. In the meantime, at dawn and just before dusk, the dairyman turns the fresh milk into fontina, methodically repeating the following phases. Curdling, breaking of the curds, semi-cooking of the curds, extraction of the curds, shaping, pressing, markers are placed so that each wheel can be tracked. In fact, each wheel has 2 identification markers applied. A number on the side that indicates the producer, and a code placed on the edge referring to the production date, which has a green background for alpine pastures. The fresh wheels are usually taken from the alpine pastures to storehouses for aging. When autumn changes the light and colours, the cattle go down to the valley. According to tradition, this is the 29th of September. This descent, often undertaken on foot even today, is an occasion of celebration for the people of the Alps who decorate the season's most productive cows with gaudy decorations. These are the leaders of the herd, the queens of the alpine pasture. After around 4 months, the animals return home with a proud parade through the villages. Upon arrival at the bottom of the valley, the alpine people and animals take a well-deserved break to rest and eat. In the winter, the alpine pastures are covered with snow, leaving the landscape, which is predominantly green during the summer, completely white for several months. The pastures and buildings are covered by this abundant blanket until the following spring, when they re-emerge from the melted snow for a new pasturing season. While the alpine pastures sleep beneath the snow and the climate grows colder even in the valley, the dairy cows shelter in the stables. Most of them give birth during this period, and their diet changes from fresh grass to the hay that was stored over the previous summer. Businesses in the valley, whose breeding techniques have evolved over the past decades, have set up their stables with modern equipment, and mechanical milking is very common. Fresh milk is transformed immediately, so cheese production takes place every day, once early in the morning and again later in the afternoon. The milk's characteristics are routinely controlled, both in the valley and on the alpine pastures. Once the milk is in the heater, the processes occur in the same order in which they are in the alpine pastures. The higher the volume of milk transformed, the larger the rooms have to be, and more suitable the equipment, but the technology, sanctioned by the production regulations, doesn't change. Traditionally, the cheeses are aged in caves dug out of the rock, tunnels, former mines, and abandoned bunkers, which can be found throughout the region. The fresh wheels brought by the producers are placed in rows on wooden planks where they will be aged for at least 80 days, undergoing simple manual operations in natural and constant environmental conditions. Each wheel is wiped down and turned over several times a week. They are salted only during the first few weeks. This manual labor is tiring and requires particular regularity. In the past, semi-automatic machines have been introduced to brush the wheels. Temperatures in the caves never exceed 12 degrees Celsius and remain more or less constant. The relative humidity nears the saturation level, so the rocky walls of the caves are wet. Use of innovation has continued over time, so where possible, the manual side of the activities of salting, turning and brushing of the wheels has been greatly reduced. The production regulations allow the wheels to also be aged in storerooms using air conditioning technology. In these environments, and thanks to the work undertaken by the robot, the operator has basically now taken on an inspection role. After the wheels have aged for at least 80 days in the storerooms and all the relative inspections have been undertaken by the inspection body, the wheels are examined one by experts from the Protection Association. Each wheel is then ink branded with the Fontina origin and quality mark on the same side that has the producer's identification number in compliance with the production's regulations. The traceability of each Fontina is guaranteed to the customer by a case-in plaque applied to the edge with a code that is noted in a special register during production. From each of the 6 aging storerooms, the branded wheels are transferred to the St. Christoph Packaging and Shipping Centre. The Fontina shipping lots were, until a few years ago, prepared more or less by hand. Today, this process is undertaken almost entirely automatically. At the beginning of the conditioning line, each wheel is covered manually with a sheet of paper indicating the company's data, the DOP logo, the mark of the Fontina DOP brand, and the writing certified by ministry-approved inspection body. Advancing on rollers and conveyor belts, the wheels are first packaged individually and then labelled to allow each wheel to be traced. Packaging is completed when the wheels are placed in a cardboard box sealed with Scotch tape and marked with a copy of the label. The boxes are then carefully piled by a robot onto pallets which are covered with cellophane, ready for loading and shipping. With an automated portioning line, we can cut entire wheels of Fontina into pieces of 250 grams or more, whilst eliminating the rind. These pieces are immediately packaged in flow pack in a protected atmosphere, guaranteeing the same freshness and fragrances as a freshly cut cheese. Another automated line allows us to package slices of Fontina in thermoformed containers, starting with appropriately processed wheels. Firstly, the rind is carefully removed. A piece of the wheel is carefully and precisely cut to shape it for slicing. The groups of slices are packaged immediately in the containers labeled. Each package, flow pack and container is labeled with the DOP brand to attest that the portions and slices have come from wheels of certified origin Fontina. Conformity with the production regulations is inspected by experts from the Protection Association. Fontina is a soft, elastic cheese that comes in a variety of colors, from ivory to straw yellow, featuring holes throughout the wheel. Fresh, it has a sweet, delicate flavor that becomes more intense as the cheese ages. Fontina guarantees a high energy count, supplying minerals, salts, and vitamins A and B, and it is also rich in live dairy bacteria. It is also very easily digested. Unique and incomparable, this is Fontina DOP. For 800 years only in Val d'Aosta, from the highest pastures of Europe. As well as Fontina DOP, the Val d'Aosta also produces Gressoney Toma. The production area is limited to the easternmost valley of the region, bordering with Piedmont and Switzerland, and is crossed by the river Lys, which surges into the glaciers of the same name in the Monte Rosso Massif. Named Valser in the local dialect, this is the local settlement of original inhabitants of the High Valais, and dates back to around 9 centuries. This extreme part of the region is still today characterized by the original language, rural architecture, habits and customs. Tradition has it that in the summer the Gressoney Toma is produced in alpine pastures and in the winter in the valley dairies. Unlike with Fontina, the dairymen process this cheese just once a day, normally after the skimming in the morning. The various phases of the transformation are always carried out in the same order. Rennet is added for curdling. Breaking of the curds, Wrapping of the curds. Molding. Branding. And turning of the wheels. After the cream is mechanically churned, some clots start to form, which then turn into butter. Before packing, the butter is kneaded into pats. Toma is aged for a minimum of 60 days with no upper limit on the time and is undertaken on wooden planks in cellars, crotte, caves, or other suitable places. During the initial phases of the aging process, the wheels are alternatively salted and turned. If the cheese is to be aged longer, the wheels are merely turned regularly. Gressinet Toma eaten fresh is sweet to the palate. As it ages, it acquires more decisive, complex, sapid, and sometimes slightly spicy undertones. All our cheeses are the perfect accompaniment, as is our tradition, to a glass of red wine and a slice of brown bread. Our grandmothers used to use Fontina when cooking to add flavor to special meals as well as a table cheese. Today, chefs use traditional Valdostana cheeses to create unique, creative, and delicious masterpieces. There are multiple possible communions with wines from sparkling to reds, not to mention beer. Give in to the temptation of Valdostana fondue, a triumph for Fontina DOP in the kitchen, certain to go down well at any time. Used in everyday cooking, our cheeses transform any dish: risotto, pasta, vegetables, meat, salads. They are the perfect addition to any recipe. Try all of our products. Milk and Fontina Producers Association since 1957. One brand, one guarantee.